stay in this meditative space, this really working or being aware of continuity, even as I begin to speak and share on today's topic, this week's topic. Recognizing that continuity is a core teaching of Tantra. It's a key thing to focus on. So you have your formal practice, and if you're going to start working with just one teaching, what you might want to work with is noticing the transition. So when you start to move off your mat or off your cushion, can you stay in that space, in that state that you've dropped into as a result of your practice, and cultivate it, continue to be in it, make it continuous, so that there isn't this abrupt sense of, I've done my practice, now I'm going about my life. But it all becomes one and the same, so that in essence, eventually there is no difference between the way that you're washing the dishes and the way that you're sitting on the cushion. So continuity. And this is a good opportunity to practice that, because there's no physical shift in the body and you're continuing to listen to what I'm saying. So just inviting you to come into that continuity. So right before this call, I was on the Tantrik Yoga Now Facebook group, which is Christopher Wallis's Facebook group. And he does an office hours video once a week or once every 2 weeks, where he'll just answer any and all questions. And I was reading through the contents for that video, and one sentence really stood out, where he talks about, I haven't watched the video yet, I just read the contents, but he said, spiritual practice begins when we stop using our practice as a methodology of control, right? We stop using practice to control. And I'm paraphrasing, so I may not have got it exactly right, what he says, but that to me just felt such a crucial element, because what I've noticed in working with people and in my own practice is that often people will come on the mat in order to shift state, or in order to feel a particular way. There's a sense of wanting to achieve or attain or accomplish something, a particular way of feeling, like I want to feel calm, so I'm going to do my meditation, so I'm going to use my meditation to feel calm. And whilst on one level that can be totally beneficial, on another level it's continuing to perpetuate that duality whereby we want to be in a certain place and we don't want to be in another place. And ultimately, the real freedom, the real liberation in all of this comes about when there is a deep okayness about whatever is unfolding. And almost, there might still be preference, like this is, I prefer this over this. But at the deepest level, there's almost an intense curiosity. So if, say, there's some really uncomfortable, painful emotions coming up, there's almost intense curiosity of like, oh, this is juicy. Oh, I wonder what this is really going to feel like if I go right into it. And that can be so hard to fathom from the perspective of not wanting to feel or not wanting to experience certain things. And this is the essence of the shift from living in a duality to living in a non-dual way. And it's worth recognizing that Tantra, not all Tantric lineages are non-dual, but the Tantric lineage that I'm studying and practicing and teaching in is non-dual. And it does appear that reality for me has become, I'm not going to say that it's completely non-dual all the time. However, I'm just really feeling into this. Even when shitty things are happening, there's a fundamental sense of okayness with it. And what I'm noticing is that there is less and less running from or distracting or avoiding all those behaviors that I used to have. They're not appearing that often. And even as I say that though, this weekend, I did notice an exception. I did notice that come up. And it stands out when there's a sense of wanting to run away from a situation. It's really palpable, it's really obvious. So what's worth reflecting on is what your relationship is to your practice, right? Because the way we relate to our practice usually reflects the way that we relate to life. So therefore, what that points to then is that if you can become really aware of how you're relating to practice, are you using it as a way to feel better? Are you using it as another methodology of control, for example? Then once you're aware of that, you can start to explore what would it feel like. I'm just feeling into how to language this. To just allow practice to be whatever it is. To just go into practice being really curious about what might unfold with no attachment to any particular kind of outcome. And the reason this is so important is that, actually, before I go into that piece, how many people read the Jed article, the Jed McKenna article that I posted last Friday? I can just see a show of hands if anyone's read it. I know you did, Cindy. Okay, so what I suggest, if you haven't read that yet, after this, go and read that article, because it's a bit mind-bending. It's mind-fuckery for sure, and definitely confronting. And at the very end, though, there's a paragraph where Jed basically says that this whole spiritual path is not about deciding who you are. It's not about figuring out what your purpose is. It's not about living your best self. It's not about, fulfilling your potential. It's none of that shit. It's really about just simply allowing what you are to be, allowing what you are to be, recognizing that you have no idea what your avatar is, right? And the plain facts of it are is that we all have every I'm going to say avatar, like if you imagine we're all playing an avatar as such, not every avatar is going to be successful in the way that society sees it. That's not the way that the game works. And so much of our suffering is really around not liking what's going on in our lives, not liking how we're showing up, and trying to control it all the time. We have this fixed idea of who we want to be in order to feel a particular way, so we're trying to control. And in this article, what Jed is saying is you've got to have the balls to just allow yourself to be what you are from moment to moment to moment. And that is the scariest thing ever, because you're letting go of control completely. There is no control. You cannot walk this path without letting go of control. And that's why looping right back around, what Christopher was saying around spiritual practice, that spiritual practice only begins when you stop trying to control it, you see. And that's really that's the beginning point, is moving away from control. I'm just going to look at the chat here, Cindy. Yeah, spiritual practice suggests that we find our purpose. That's one of those near enemies to the truth that Christopher talks about, actually. This idea that there even is a purpose is a thing, and then the idea that you have to find it, because if there is a purpose, why would you have to find it? You just have to allow it, right? Because it's going to be, if it's your purpose, how could it not live itself out through you? But the thing is, what if your purpose is to be the janitor at the high school, right? That might be it, and that might be the most amazing role because of these extraordinary interactions that you have with high school students over the years that profoundly impacts them. But in our society, the idea of being a high school janitor, for example, for most people, they would do everything they could to fight against that. If they were heading down that path and going, how the hell did I end up as a high school? I shouldn't be, blah, 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 the idea of surrendering to that just seems so freaking crazy. But in essence, once there's a dropping down into non-duality, it doesn't fucking matter what we're doing, ever. There is so much appreciation, like joy, wonder at anything. So being the high school janitor could be the most fulfilling, extraordinary, contentful, I think I just made that word up, experience if one fully surrendered to it. And the thing is, if it wasn't actually your dharma, your purpose, when you fully surrender to a thing, it allows it to play out so much faster, and you allow whatever is meant to come through to come through. So, which loops us right back around to this thing of control and being able to fully let go of control, to just trust life so freaking deeply. Any other questions or comments? I know this has been a little bit sort of wandering over territory, but that quote from Christopher Wallis, spiritual practice begins when you stop trying to control it. And then the article on Jed McKenna basically saying this whole thing is about allowing yourself to be what you are. And the sense that most of us are trying to control in order to achieve a particular outcome so we can feel a particular way, and all of the judgment and what will people think, and I should be and I shouldn't be. And all of that sort of loops right around to saying, what would happen if you just let go? Any questions?